This is Heresy, the miniature wargaming talk show. In this video, we're going to talk all about how to equip Space Marine tanks from the Wave 1 releases for Legions Imperialis. We're going to be talking about the weapon archetypes from these tanks, so the things that they share in common between themselves and also other vehicles in the game as well. And then we're going to look at the Predator, the Sicaran, and the Kratos, and what weapons you can use on those. But before we do that, if you enjoy the show, please do like and subscribe. If there's anything you'd like to comment on in the video, please do that down below as well. And don't forget to join us on Discord, which is linked in the video description too. And now, on with the show. Let's talk through a few intro bits first of all. So the idea of this video is to help you decide how to assemble your models. I know, particularly when new games come out, lots of people have questions about what guns to use, and you don't want to make mistakes when you're gluing stuff together. So this is what that's for. What we're not going to talk about is which vehicle is the best, or whether these vehicles are good or not. We'll save that for a future video. We're just going to talk about the weapons on each vehicle and which ones you might want to choose and why. Generally as well, mixing and matching weapons in units is not a great idea, because in Imperialis, when you shoot at a unit, you're normally shooting at all tanks or all infantry. So mixing and matching weapons is generally not ideal. You can do it if you want to, but I would advise against it. So let's look at some weapon archetypes first of all. So we got the auto cannon. So 16-inch range, kind of medium in Imperialis. 2 shots, 5+ to hit, 1 AP, and the light AT trait, so it gets 0 AP against vehicles. This is generally best when used against infantry and walkers. So you get your AP against those targets, so you've got a couple of shots. It's okay versus vehicles, because even though it's only a 5+ to hit, you have got more shots than your average sort of las cannon and that kind of stuff, even though they're 0 AP. So it's not a bad weapon versus vehicles by any means, and the maths does back that up. It's also got a higher spike potential, which is one of the things you can miss when you talk about averages like I do a lot. Just because it averages X number of damage, it's got 2 shots, it can do more, and spiking your dice is a real thing in war games, so bear that in mind. Las cannons have got a 22-inch range, so that's the general longest range for most guns in the game. There's plenty that go above that, but most things that are long are 22. It's got 1 shot, 4+ to hit, 1 AP, and the anti-tank trait, so it gets 0 AP against infantry. It's better than the auto cannon on average against 2+ and 3+ saves. Most vehicles in the game having a 3+ save, or quite commonly a 2+. And it's exactly the same against vehicles with a 4+ save. So if you're shooting against rhinos, it doesn't matter which one of these that you're shooting. If you're shooting at walkers, it doesn't matter which one of these you're using as well. But it's worse versus basically everything else. So if you're shooting against potentially very light vehicles in the future, or for now, if you're shooting against infantry, or if you're shooting against walkers, because although they have the same average damage, the autocannon can in theory hit 2 of them. The autocannon's better. So both of these weapons are quite good. They're not a million miles away from each other against the targets they're good and bad against either. The las cannon can get quite a lot better against vehicles with a 2+ save, but they're not a million miles away from each other. Generally, I would say the las cannon edges it, but if you want some firepower in your army to kill things like dreadnoughts or rhinos, or if you feel like you're going to be shooting against infantry in the open, the autocannon is still a good choice. Then the third common archetype is the accurate las cannon. So this is just a las cannon with the accurate trait, so it rerolls its to hit. Now this is significantly better than autocannons against vehicles. It's also a bit better than autocannons against walkers as well, and it's only a little bit worse than the autocannon against infantry, if those infantry are in cover where they've got an invulnerable save. So the fact that the autocannon's got a point of AP isn't relevant. This is actually better in that situation as well. So when there's a choice between weapons here, autocannon and las cannon, I would generally edge the las cannon for multiple use, but the autocannon is good. But accurate las cannons are just, way better than both of these. So if you get the choice of that, as we're going to talk about in a moment, you basically choose that one. The last common weapon you'll be choosing from versus other guns is the heavy bolter. So this is 12-inch range, 2 shots, 5+ to hit, 0 AP, light, so it can only hurt infantry, and it's got the point defense trait. That means it can shoot in the movement phase as you're moving around, which is cool, which means it gets to fire before any other guns on the table as well, which is nice. It also means when you fire it in Overwatch, it doesn't get a minus to hit, so it's hitting on 5 instead of -2, which would be a 6. So point defense is a really cool trait. The problem with the heavy bolter is it's only got a 12-inch range, And as a gun, even if it is shooting against infantry, it's pretty weak. 2 shots hitting on a 5 with no AP, and it can't hurt any other targets. So it's a pretty cool weapon in terms of, the fact that the game's very assault-based and you want to defend against assault, or you can shoot stuff in a drive-by and then shoot something else with your main guns later. That's kind of all nice. The problem the heavy bolter has is the alternates are often an autocannon or a las cannon, which are just so much more powerful. And I think this is a weakness of the point system in Imperialis. There's not really, in my opinion, a time when you would choose a heavy bolter over one of those more heavy weapons. If there was a points difference of maybe even a couple of points, you might. But that's not how the point system works. I think heavy bolters are a bit in the dust in general in Imperialis at the minute, which is a little bit of a shame. But there's still plenty of options for your tanks and how you equip them. So first, let's look at the Predator. So the Predator cannon is basically an autocannon with 18-inch range. And it competes with the Predator las cannon, which is an accurate las cannon archetype, as I've just described. So effectively, what we're saying is you're pitching the best gun of those 3 big guns I just described versus an autocannon with 2 inches of extra range. Now, the only sensible choice there really is the las cannon, unfortunately. And, we kind of wish that these two were a bit more of a choice, so you could, have some options when building your army, but the accurate las cannon is just so much better in so many more situations. And obviously it's also got more range as well. So in addition to having better stats, it fires 4 inches further too. Same for the sponsons, las cannon or heavy bolter. As I've just said, there's not really a great reason to take heavy bolters when you could have a las cannon. You'd be better getting that anti-infantry firepower elsewhere in the army, such as from rhinos, which have a similar gun, or just from infantry who can do it. The conclusion here is that unfortunately the way Predators are statted and pointed and everything, giving it a las cannon turret and las cannon sponsons is the only really sensible option from a gameplay point of view. Optionally, I'm going to throw you an option here. You can convince yourself that the autocannon's got some tiny advantages if you need variety. Technically, it can get 2 hits. The las cannon can't. Technically it's better if you're shooting at its optimal targets all the time, like infantry. So you could edge that. And if you want some variety in your army, it's not a million miles away as long as you're not shooting at tanks. So I think you can do this. If you're not super concerned about building the best army you can, you could certainly go with the Predator cannon. I'm probably going to put it on one of my Predator squadrons just for variety, I think. But sponson-wise, you're pretty much just on las cannons. So not a lot of variety in the Predator, the way it's been statted, unfortunately. So then we got the Sicaran, which is quite an interesting tank. So it's got 2 unique guns. You can choose from one of these for its turret. So you got the Accelerator autocannon, which is not really anything like a normal autocannon. So it's 16-inch range, but it's got 3 shots. It's not light anti-tank. It's got no trait, so it hits everything equally, which is great. And it's got the tracking ability, which means it rerolls its misses versus flyers. So 3 shots on a 5+, it will average 1 hit. But even against flyers, it'll average 0.9 hits, which is pretty scary for flyers, because most of them are very expensive, 80, 100 points with a 3+ save. When you fire this, it's more often than not going to hit. And when they save, if they fail to roll a 4+, their big expensive flyer's dead. So this is a pretty cool gun from the versatility point of view. And again, 3 shots, quite high spike potential, can do quite a lot. Short range at 16 though, and easy for flyers to get around if they want to, but you will at least interdict that space. The alternate is the Omega Plasma Array. This is only a 14-inch range, pretty short. 1 shot, 4+ to hit, -2 AP and accurate. So it's got a powerful shot. -2 AP is a good AP. There's, not that much of it in the smaller vehicles in the game. Most of them get 1 at most. And it's also quite accurate because it's got the accurate trait, so on average it'll get 0.75 hits. So both of those guns are good. The autocannon does edge it because it's got, much higher potential, 2 inches more range. It hits 1 shot on average as opposed to 0.75 as well. It has got less AP, but the shots kind of compensate for that, and it's also got this bonus against flyers. So I would say the autocannon's probably slightly better. But if you are going to be making a choice or want to add some variety in your army, the Plasma Array is not very far away. And when they're shooting at targets with a 3+ save, which is most tanks, they're the same. The Omega Plasma Array pulls ahead versus 2+ save things, so like Lehman Russes. So there's definitely a reason to take that too. So both of these are okay. You get a hull heavy bolter as standard on the Sicaran, which is cool. And then you get to choose from heavy bolter or las cannon sponsons. I think you've figured from this video now where I sit on that. You could probably argue that if you took the heavy bolter sponsons combined with the hull heavy bolter, that's quite a lot of drive-by infantry shooting potential. And if you combine that with an accelerator autocannon, it's quite a lot of shots out of one vehicle. I still think you would take the las cannon anyway, just because, you know, it's got more uses against a wider range of targets, and you can still shoot it at the infantry if you want to as well. But I think there's a bit more argument to take heavy bolter here if you're really set on variety. Maths-wise, though, I would stick with the las cannon. And then we got the Kratos. The Kratos is really cool. Kratos battle cannon, 20-inch range, 2 shots, 4+, 1 AP, which is very versatile, quite a good gun. Basically like 2 las cannon shots, but without anti-tank, so it can hurt infantry. Or it can fire 1 shot at a 10-inch range with a 4+ to hit, 4 AP, anti-tank and armor bane. 4 AP and armor bane basically means nothing in the game is going to save that shot. A 2+ save has got to roll a 6 twice. A 1+ save's got to roll a 5 twice. It's, you know, pretty much unlikely to ever save that. So 50% of the time almost it's going to do damage to anything regardless of its armor. Really good weapon, that. Really powerful, very solid, versatile, works against everything. Then we've also got the Melter Blast Gun. So this has only got an 8-inch range. It's basically got the same as the 10-inch Kratos profile in terms of stats, but it's also got the Bunker Buster trait. So the Bunker Buster trait lets it damage buildings, which is a super important and powerful thing to be able to do in Imperialis. Not that common in Space Marines either. Solar Auxilia can do it a little bit more easily. But what Bunker Buster does, as opposed to rules like Demolisher that just let you damage vehicles, is it doubles your AP. Now, vehicles take their saves on 2d6, just like the Terminators of the old days, if you're as old as I am. Most of them have got a save of about a 4+, maybe a 5+. So, minus 4 AP or minus 3 AP on Demolisher cannons, they've still got a decent chance of saving those, whereas minus 8 AP from the Bunker Buster, if you hit, they're probably not, or if they've got a 5+ save, cannot save that. So that's a really powerful shot. And it can still blow tanks up very easily, albeit at a short range as well. It's actually one of the most powerful anti-structure individual shots in the game. There are better weapons that have got more shots, but it's one of the most powerful in the game. And it's actually more strong in terms of numbers than the Titan Melter weapons, which have often just got Demolisher. So this has got the 8 AP, they've only got 4. So really good weapon, this. Just as good as the battle cannon. You can definitely choose either of them, depending on what role you want for the tanks. And both of those main guns come with a coaxial autocannon as well, which is just more shots for the tank. You then get to choose. You get 2 Kratos las cannons, which are accurate las cannons. So combines well with all the other las cannons or the battle cannon on the main gun, which is basically las cannon-ish stats as well. Or you can choose 2 Kratos autocannons. Now, these are an accurate autocannon. So, when we talked about the differences in autocannons and las cannons before, these really start to redress the balance a little bit, because las cannons, when they're accurate, gain some, but because autocannons only have a 5+ to hit naturally, they actually gain a little bit more from the accuracy reroll than the 4+ to hit on the las cannon does. So, these weapons are actually very balanced against each other. There's almost nothing in it, really. When you're shooting against a 3+ save target, the las cannon is only 1% better than the Kratos autocannon. And obviously the autocannon can spike multiple hits, so the autocannon's effectively better. I think this is a great option to increase your firepower versus lighter targets. But if you are going to be shooting at lots of things with 2+ saves, which isn't that uncommon in the game, I would still potentially go with the las cannon as well. You can really use either of these. The other big difference is the range, though. So the weapons on the Kratos, 22, 20-inch range. If you take the autocannon, you've gone down to 16 and unbalance your ranges. But you could definitely use either of these, and you get 2 of them on the tank as well, which is great. So again, as with the other vehicles, you get to choose las cannon or heavy bolter sponsons. So we're going to choose las cannons if we want the ideal stats. So there's lots of variety in the builds for the Kratos, and I actually tried to come up with some recommended builds, and I realised that as long as you're taking las cannon sponsons, everything's valid. If you want to take Melter blast gun and the auto cannons, because you're short range anyway, that makes sense. But melter blast gun and the las cannons means you can still shoot a bit earlier at a longer range if the melter's out of range. And the same for the battle cannon. Battle cannon pairs really well with the las cannons because they're similar range, similar stats. But equally, if you take the auto cannon, it's probably slightly better against a wider range of targets, even though you've got a range trade-off. So all these work, and even at the most competitive level, these really all work as well. I'm building my first ones with battle cannons and las cannons just because I like how they all have the same range. But my second box, I'm certainly going to build with some melter blast guns. And I actually think there's an opportunity to mix and match these in the same unit as well. So maybe 2 of each. So you've still got most of the firepower when you're in a tank shootout, but if you need to blow up a building, they can move forward and do that in a pinch. Or maybe if you take 6 Kratos in a squadron, you take 4 las cannon and 2 melt or something like that. But lots of things you can do with these, and thankfully, you can't really go wrong. It's actually a bit of a shame to see how well these Kratos weapons are balanced and how they're all good. And then when you look at the Sicaran, there's a reasonably clear winner in the auto cannon there, even though it's not by very much. And the Predator's effectively only got 1 good loadout if you care about, the stats at all. It's a shame when you see something like the Kratos where it's really well balanced next to a bunch of other tanks where it isn't. But c'est la vie, that's the rules writing that we have to work with. And that's the end of the show for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it's helped you with some of those outstanding questions for what you're going to glue on your tanks, how you're going to equip them, giving you a little bit of information there. If you did enjoy the show, please do like and subscribe. Do drop me any comments down below, particularly if it's just to say that you enjoyed the show as well. I always love reading that stuff, keeps me going. And please do join us on Discord as well. The link to that is in the video description down below. That's all from me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.